I often wonder when we ask people to invite Jesus into their heart, how often we don't tell them why. I don't know that I've ever bought a product and they say, just buy it. They have infomercials now that last 30 minutes just to tell you what the product is before they ask you to buy it. I think people ought to know what they've been asked to receive, and what are the benefits of receiving what they've been asked to get. Few people rarely understand why is it so necessary to be a Christian. Why do I need to believe in Jesus? I bet one thing, Ellen is glad she knew. She found out Friday, didn't she? We need to understand this process, and you need to ask yourself the question, and we're answering this morning. How do you know you're saved? What is the transforming work of the Spirit? What is it that happens when you become a Christian? I think that's a good thing. In Romans chapter 8, we're breaking in again at verse 5. For, here I go again. For, it's usually a term of conclusion. And you will be forced to read the prior context to understand what is being explained. In the 5th verse of the chapter, the apostle gives the first of the reasons why believers walk after the Spirit. In other words, the for in the verse is connected to the last clause of the preceding verse. Men walk after the inward inclination. They walk after their bent, their disposition that they have. It's natural to walk in accordance to their inward thoughts, and thus those who have at their innermost center the lust of the flesh will walk after the flesh. And the opposite is going to be true, that those who walk according to the Spirit are going to walk according to the Spirit. To be after the flesh is to exist only for the flesh. And the clause then refers to unbelievers. They mind the things of the flesh, that is, they think and will not. They think and will according to the flesh, desires of the flesh, their conduct will be accordingly. On the other hand, they that are after the Spirit think and will, according to inclinations that has been implanted by Christ in the innermost being of the believer, they are inclined, the bent of their thought is to do what Christ says. They are inclined to holiness just as the believers are inclined to unholiness. The renewed nature of the believer, upheld by the Spirit, determines the bent of life. So Paul's point is this, that a believer does not behave according to the flesh because their heart and mind are no longer continually centered on the things of the flesh and ruled by sin. The end result of following the bent of the human nature is physical and spiritual death. What happens if you keep following the pattern of the bent of your life, it's going to lead to spiritual death. After this point, Paul launches upon a fairly extended contrast the term flesh and spirit, which he is described in verse 4. He is describing the difference between a person who is lost and a person who is saved. So you can pretty well figure out if you're saved or you're lost, if you're a Christian or you're not. Because what happens when you are lost, you will act like you are lost. If you are a believer, you will act like a believer because it's in you to be exactly what you are. So Paul gives, but the word flesh also has different meanings. For example, flesh can be used ordinarily, the physical life that is shared by believers and unbelievers alike. We all live in the flesh. I don't know if there's any aliens here today. Wouldn't it be cool? An alien shows up. But usually in Paul, the ethical force of the word, it refers to the human nature as corrupt, as weak by sin, and it is dominant. Because the variety of expression about the flesh may be confusing. Some explanation is necessary. To be in the flesh, as the word is used here in verse 8, is to be in an unregenerated state.
That's right. Amen.
To be, in verse 8, according to the flesh, is to have the flesh as the regulating principle of life. To walk, as in verse 4, according to the flesh, is to carry out the conduct, those things dictated by the flesh. Notice verse 8, those who are continually according to are dominated or controlled by the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh. So we're helping you understand what is the difference between a lost person and a saved person. In Romans chapter 8, verse 12, it says, "Therefore, brethren, we are debtors to the flesh to live after the flesh." Let me give you a couple other verses. John chapter 3 and verse 16.